One night in 1992, a small toy boat mysteriously rises to the surface of a backyard swimming pool. Rebecca is jolted awake by the strange noise and peers out her window, spotting the little boat below. She rushes to wake her gravely ill brother to share the news about his toy. But when he won't stir, she vows to retrieve it herself. Rebecca heads to the backyard and grabs the skimmer net to fish the toy out, since it is already sunk to the bottom of the pool. No matter how many attempts she makes, the toy keeps slipping away. And with every try she edges dangerously closer to the rim. Without warning, an invisible force hurls her into the pool. And as she struggles to stay afloat, she spots her mother standing outside calling her name. Rebecca scrambles back to the surface. But when she looks around, there is absolutely nobody in sight. The pool lights suddenly begin to flicker, and a frightened Rebecca strokes toward the edge, ready to climb out. But at that moment, the boat bobs back up to the surface, and Rebecca changes her mind and turns back to grab it. The instant her fingers close around the boat, something seizes her ankle and drags her straight down. A chilling voice hisses the word Temagami just before Rebecca bursts back through the surface, thrashing and screaming for help. She is yanked beneath the water one final time, and only her lone slipper floats back up to the surface. In the present day, the Waller family is searching for a new home to move into. Ray spends most of the visit sitting in the car, seeming distant and out of sorts. Ray's wife Eve appreciates that the property is close to her school, while Ray is drawn to the backyard pool, even though swimming terrifies Eve. While inspecting the pool, Ray spots a baseball and reaches in to grab it, only to lose his footing and tumble into the water. Tangled in the pool cover and overgrown plants and gasping for air, Ray has a vivid vision of himself back on the baseball field, perfectly healed from his illness. That vision gives him the will to fight through his panic, and he manages to free himself and haul himself out of the water. At a follow-up appointment, Ray's doctor urges him to stick to gentler activities like yoga or swimming, rather than playing sports with the kids. On the drive home from the clinic, the couple agrees to go ahead and purchase the house with the pool. Before long, the family settles into their new home, and the children begin attending the same school where Eve teaches. Their daughter Izzy is nervous on her first day at the new school, but she quickly connects with a popular boy named Ronan, who invites her to join his swim club. Over the weekend, the whole family pitches in to scrub and clean the long-neglected pool. Ray shoves his hand into the pool drain to clear the blockage and cries out when something slices across his palm. He yanks his hand back and finds it gushing blood at an alarming rate. The family backs away in alarm as thick, murky brown water starts gushing out of the drain with terrifying speed. Days later, a pool technician comes by and explains that the water is being fed by a natural underground spring. Spring-fed pools like this one have natural filtration and geothermal warmth, and local legends say the water is extraordinary for the skin. The technician adds that this entire neighborhood was once packed with health spas and wellness retreats. With the pool finally clean and ready, the whole family dives in for some long-awaited fun. Eve tosses a handful of coins into the water while the kids dive in and compete to find the special marked one. Ray works through his routine exercises and is amazed by how the water seems to lift every ounce of strain from his aching muscles. That evening, Eve pores over the household finances and grows increasingly stressed by the mounting cost of Ray's medical care. Needing to unwind, she slips outside for a late-night swim to clear her head. The family cat Cider meows loudly at Eve as if trying to warn her, then turns and darts away. Mid-stroke, Eve is startled to see what looks like Ray standing at the pool's edge. But the moment she looks again, the figure has vanished. When the pool lights start to flicker, Eve decides she has had enough and makes for the ladder. The second she steps out of the water, the flickering stops and every light burns steadily again. After checking on the kids, Eve finds Ray already in bed and asks whether he came out to the pool, but he swears he never left the room. She tells Ray they need to get a pool cover first thing tomorrow and look into whatever is wrong with the lights. Meanwhile, Cider has settled on the diving board outside as the pool lights begin their eerie flickering once more. The toy boat reappears on the water's surface, and Cider stares at it, letting out a long, low growl. The following morning, Elliot discovers Cider's collar floating in the pool, but the cat itself is nowhere to be found. No matter where the family searches, Cider has completely disappeared. Ray fishes the collar out of the water and notices his bandage is soaked through. So, he decides to peel it off and change it. To his absolute astonishment, the ugly gash on his hand has sealed completely, leaving no trace of injury at all. That afternoon, the family finally gets a proper cover secured over the pool. That evening, Eve drifts into a vivid dream of herself alone in the pool with a shadowy figure hovering close. And she jolts awake in a cold sweat. She reaches over and finds Ray's side of the bed empty, then looks out the window to see him cutting through the pool with surprising energy in the dead of night. At Ray's next doctor visit, she runs all the usual tests and is stunned to find his condition has dramatically improved. Ray tells the doctor he has been swimming twice a day and credits the pool as his best form of treatment. Sometime later, Ray is filming himself training in the garage, driven by a fierce need to push his recovering body even harder. Elliot stops by and asks Ray to come swim with him since the rules say he is not allowed in the pool by himself. But Ray is far too fixated on his training to stop. Instead, Ray draws a smiley face on a coin and sends Elliot off to play their underwater fetching game on his own. Elliot perches the marked coin on top of one of his action figures and dives in to play beneath the surface. All at once, coins start raining down into the pool from above. And Elliot assumes his dad has come out to play. So, he pops back up to look. But the backyard is completely deserted. There is no one there at all. Elliot dives back in to retrieve the coin and finds yet more coins now dropping through the water around him. He scoops them all up and glances toward the surface, where a shadowy figure seems to be standing near the pool entrance. Elliot is bewildered to watch the smiley face coin drop back into the water, even though he thought he had it in his hand. He surfaces a second time only to find the backyard completely empty once again. Elliot slips back into the water and is startled by a loud thumping on the diving board above him. But when he turns around, nothing is there. A girl's voice suddenly rings out, begging for help from somewhere near the pool's filtration unit. The voice tells him her name is Rebecca, and says she is trapped right where Elliot's action figure has come to rest. He plunges his hand into the opening to grab the figure and feels it wrapped in hair, and just then a cold bony hand snaps around his wrist. After a desperate struggle, Elliot manages to wrench himself free and catches a brief horrifying glimpse of a dark shape lurking inside the purifier. A shaking Elliot tells Eve everything, and she rushes outside to look, but finds nothing. Only the action figure floating calmly in the pool. When Ray hears about the incident, he brushes it off and suggests Elliot is simply imagining things because he has no friends. Eve counters by proposing they throw a pool party so the whole family can socialize and the kids can make new connections. Shortly after, the whole family heads out to cheer Elliot on at his baseball practice. Word spreads quickly that a well-known baseball player is on the field, and Ray happily hands out advice and tips to anyone who asks. The team keeps nudging him until, after a moment of hesitation, Ray agrees to step up and take a few swings. His first two attempts miss entirely, and on one of them he loses his balance and tumbles to the ground. Eve starts to rush over, but Ray waves her off with a grin, insists he is fine, and sets himself up for another swing. This time Ray locks eyes with his son, deciding in that moment that Elliot will be the one to pull the best out of him. Drawing on memories of the pool and the vision he had on their very first day there, Ray swings with such explosive force that the ball's seams crack open and it rockets straight into the overhead lights. The entire team bursts into amazement. But Elliot stands back looking sullen. His father has hijacked his practice. That evening, Eve and Ray head out together for a dinner date. Left in charge, Izzy seizes the chance and invites Ronan over, threatening Elliot with consequences if he dares to tell their parents. Ronan and Izzy splash around having fun before agreeing to play a game of Marco Polo. When it is Izzy's turn to be it, she calls out Marco with her eyes closed, and Ronan quietly slips out of the pool to trick her. Without warning, the radio cuts off, and something unseen rises through the dark water to breathe the word polo. Izzy moves toward the sound, still convinced it is Ronan playing around and trying to fool her. But just as she is about to reach it, the presence disappears completely, leaving only still, dark water. The creature materializes directly behind Izzy and breathes polo, then vanishes the instant she spins around. Still convinced it must be Ronan, Izzy dives in after him, but she can find no trace of him and the pool seems to have no floor at all. The entity locks onto her ankle and starts hauling her deeper, but Izzy kicks with everything she has until she finally breaks free. She spots a rectangle of light far above and strokes hard toward it as the pool lights begin strobing around her. Izzy bursts through the surface just in time, and Ronan grabs her arms and drags her to safety. Still shaking violently, Izzy tries to put into words what she just experienced in the water. Ronan is completely baffled and insists she was alone in the pool and only under the water for a matter of seconds. Right then, Eve and Ray pull into the driveway, and Ronan quickly plants a kiss on Izzy before bolting before they spot him. Later, Elliot corners Izzy and presses her about what she experienced, desperate for confirmation that he is not losing his mind. Izzy shuts him down completely. The pool is helping their father get better, and she refuses to be the one who ruins that. She also points out that even if they did speak up, not a single person would believe them. The day of the party comes. The backyard fills with guests, and everyone appears to be having a wonderful time. Despite the festive mood, Izzy stays well back from the water and mingles with friends on dry land. Meanwhile, Elliot slips up to his bedroom and quietly mounts a camera so he can keep an eye on everything happening below. In the kitchen, Eve pulls aside a neighbor named Kay and asks her why the pool sat unused for so many years. Kay tries to dodge the subject at first, but she eventually tells Eve that a young girl once drowned in that very pool, remembering Elliot's encounter. Eve asks whether the girl was named Rebecca, and Kay is visibly stunned that she already knows. Outside, one of the neighborhood kids tracks Ray down and asks him to sign the baseball he smashed apart the other day. After signing it, Ray waves the boy into the pool where a group of adults are already balancing kids on their shoulders for a water battle. The boy climbs up onto Ray's shoulders and the two of them wade into the thick of the battle. It takes real effort, but Ray and the boy manage to topple the other teams and claim victory. Yet with each celebratory move, the boy is shoved further and further out of the pool. Meanwhile, Ray drifts lower and lower beneath the water's surface. Without warning, a black liquid surges out of the drain and pours into Ray's open mouth, rapidly taking control of him. The boy begs Ray to release him, but the possessed man clamps down tighter and slowly walks both of them toward the deep end. The boy begins to go under as the familiar toy boat materializes on the water directly above them. Elliot watches the horror unfold on his camera feed and sprints downstairs to get his mother. At that moment, the boy's parents notice a small hand waving desperately above the water, and the father dives in and pulls his son to safety just in time. The boy's legs spare deep red marks left by the crushing grip of Ray's hands. Ray is still motionless at the bottom of the pool and has to be rescued as well. He is completely unresponsive when pulled out, so Eve drops to her knees and performs CPR until he finally comes around. The party is shut down moments later and police arrive to investigate the incident. The boy's mother tells the police her son said Ray would not let go, and Eve pushes back by reminding her of Ray's illness and the fact that he nearly drowned himself. The father, who happens to coach the baseball team, says he will not press charges but makes clear he does not want Ray anywhere near practice again. Eve tries to offer an apology but the mother cuts her off, telling her she never wants Eve near her family again. Fed up, Eve gathers the kids and announces they are leaving. She is convinced something is deeply wrong with that pool. Eve insists there is something evil about the pool, but Ray keeps dismissing her fears and tries to convince her how good it is. So she has to remind him that a child very nearly died today. Ray climbs into the car and the family pulls out of the driveway together. Only seconds down the road, Ray's complexion turns gray and he begins to cough violently. Eve pulls over as Ray's veins turn black beneath his skin and he retches up a viscous dark fluid. The family rushes home immediately and gets Ray into bed. Eve calls the doctor, who is unable to come by until Tuesday, and tells her to keep Ray resting until then. Ray apologizes over and over for what happened to the boy, but between apologies he keeps pleading for just one more swim, describing in an eerie voice how incredible it feels down there. After getting Ray settled, Eve is overwhelmed with fear and empties the pool by running the garden hose directly into the main water line. She goes to check on Izzy and Elliot and promises them she will protect them no matter what. The next day at work, Eve dives deep into the history of the house and the families who lived there before. What she finds is chilling. Every single family that ever owned that property lost someone while they lived there. A desperate Eve phones Kay and presses her for Rebecca's family address, which Kay finally gives her. The address leads to a grand and imposing residence, and when Eve is welcomed inside, she meets Rebecca's mother, Lucy, a woman whose son now serves as an ambassador. Eve lays out the entire story of what has been happening, and as she speaks, Lucy begins to cough. Lucy is so agitated that her hand trembles and she overfills her glass, spilling water across the table. After Eve pleads with her, Lucy takes a breath and begins to speak, tears of black liquid streaming down her face. Through her tears, Lucy explains that long before the house was built, a natural spring sat on that land. The spring was known as Temagami, and the people of the area worshipped it because it had the power to grant any wish. But every single wish came at a terrible cost. A life had to be sacrificed in exchange. On the night Rebecca died, her brother heard her cries and tried to leave his room to help her. But Lucy had locked him inside, because the water was using her as its vessel to fulfill her wish. Rebecca's life in exchange for her sick son being cured. Lucy tells Eve that true love demands sacrifice and urges her to simply let the pool do its work and allow Ray to be healed. Eve calls the idea monstrous and refuses to accept that she would ever willingly give up one of her children. Eve pushes back hard, but Lucy is suddenly seized by another coughing fit. The tube of Lucy's oxygen tank begins filling with black fluid, and seconds later the room's fountain starts oozing the same dark substance. Lucy's voice drops to an inhuman rasp as black goo seeps from her eyes and nose, and in the entity's voice she declares that the water will sleep again. A terrified Eve turns and runs, getting out of the house as fast as she possibly can. Back at home, Ray steps into the shower, and is suddenly overtaken by the entity once more, this time through the tainted water supply that Eve unknowingly contaminated. At the very same moment, the pool drain outside begins seeping the same dark viscous liquid. When Izzy and Elliot arrive home and call out for their parents, neither Ray nor Eve appears. Izzy tries Eve's cell phone but gets no answer, so she heads to the garage to look for her. Elliot fills a glass from the kitchen tap and watches the water inside begin to tremble on its own. At that moment, Elliot hears faint meowing, and his heart leaps as he rushes out hoping it is cider. Back in the kitchen, the glass of water slowly begins sliding across the table by itself. Elliot steps into the backyard and freezes in disbelief. The pool, which Eve drained, is completely full again. The meowing seems to be coming from a pool floaty on the water, and Elliot creeps along the diving board to reach it. As the cover handle begins spinning by itself, a hideous creature materializes on the floaty and punctures it with its claws, deflating it and sending Elliot plunging into the water. The handle keeps spinning, steadily pulling the cover back over the pool to trap Elliot inside. In the kitchen, the trembling glass finally slides off the counter and explodes on the floor. Eve arrives and seizes the cover handle to stop it, but the force is so powerful it flings her backward. She lunges for it again, and Izzy rushes out to help, and together the two of them manage to overpower it and bring it to a halt. After kicking the handle free to stop it from spinning again, Eve dives into the pool and searches frantically for Elliot, even moving the floaty out of the way, but cannot find him. As she keeps swimming downward, she discovers a gaping hole at the pool floor, not just a drain, but what looks like an endless dark abyss. Eve kicks back up to the surface, grabs the garden hose, and plunges back into the pool with it so she has a supply of air. With the hose giving her extra air, she drives deeper and deeper into the terrifying darkness below. She comes down hard on a bed of broken glass shards. Tearing open her hand, she hears a strange, unsettling sound from the darkness ahead and moves toward it to investigate. Suddenly Ray materializes out of nowhere, claiming he has been looking for her, but his eyes are pure black. Water pours steadily from his feet as his midnight black eyes fix on Eve. Eve looks away for just a second and Ray vanishes, so she scrambles for her phone to call for help. Ray reappears right beside her and slaps the phone out of her hands before striking her across the face. In a hollow, inhuman voice, he tells Eve that Elliot's life is difficult and that it is better to offer him as the sacrifice. A terrified Izzy bolts for the door, but Ray seizes her hair and rips out a handful of strands, buying her just enough freedom to break loose and flee. In the garage, the television switches on by itself and plays footage of Ray's greatest baseball game before the screen dissolves into static. Ray shouts at her through the door, then decides to leave her trapped in the garage and locks it shut. Deep in the abyss below the pool, Eve finally locates Elliot and grabs him, fighting to pull them both toward the surface. But the spirits of every person who ever drowned in that pool materialize around them and reach out to drag them back down. Eve fights them off and kicks free, but no matter which direction she swims, she cannot find an exit. Rebecca's spirit suddenly appears and tosses the smiley face coin toward them, revealing that Eve and Elliot have been swimming upside down this whole time, orienting themselves properly at last. Eve can see the coin above her and understands which way leads back to the surface. Elliot is limp and unresponsive when they surface, and as Eve begins CPR, Ray looms behind her and says it is already too late. When Eve cries out for help, possessed Ray grabs her by the throat and tells her the pool has already chosen Elliot as its sacrifice. At that moment, Izzy bursts onto the scene armed with a baseball bat. and Eve catches her eye and silently urges her to swing. Izzy cracks Ray across the legs to knock him down, then hammers his back several times until he vomits up a trickle of the black liquid. Seeing the dark fluid come out, Izzy swings hard into his stomach, and the impact floods Ray's mind with vivid flashes of every cherished moment of his life. Hearing his wife and daughter calling for him, Ray finally heaves up all of the black goo and collapses back to his normal self. The moment Elliot opens his eyes and wakes, the black fluid comes gushing back out of the pool drain once more. Ray understands in an instant that the pool will never stop until it claims a life, and so he dives in and swims straight down toward the abyss. Elliot coughs up the last of the dark liquid inside him, and as the blackness drains from the pool, it disappears entirely, taking Ray with it. Sometime later, Elliot sits quietly and watches a recorded video of Ray looking into the camera and telling his family just how much they all mean to him. Eve returns the smiley face coin to Elliot and wonders aloud whether they should sell the house. But both siblings argue that selling it would only doom the next family, and it is not what their father would have wanted. Instead, the family agrees to fill the pool with dirt for good and stay in the house themselves, making sure no one else ever falls victim to Temagami again.